question is should I be concerned for my children?
Well, I mean, that's obviously a very weighty question, and the first thing I would say is to know that this is something that's obviously very difficult, and that I want to be able to empathize with you on this. I can't exactly know what you're experiencing because obviously I haven't been in that position before. And so you're obviously a very strong individual to be going through what you're going through, and there's nothing more difficult than having these conflicts within a family system. You know, where's the limits? How do I protect my children? I guess a follow-up question as I go into continuing to respond would be, is he getting help right now? Is he willing to get help? Is his depression to the point where he's just kind of given up and doesn't even want to consider help as an option? Because that plays a big role into, you know, how you can move forward. However, yes, it is a concern. It's obviously not healthy for children to be exposed to a parental figure acting out. Whether I'm working with someone who struggles with alcohol addiction or pornography addiction, you know, there's boundaries that should be set within what the children are exposed to. On the same note, I don't know the background of your husband or what he's been through, and depression is a diagnosable disease that needs to be treated. What happens with depression is, on some aspect, whether it's situational. Now, situational depression means I broke my leg, and so I can't work or play sports, which are two important things for me, therefore I'm going through depression. A clinical depression would be, although life is going fairly normal, status quo, you know, challenges and trials and difficult things, I just continually struggle with a cycle of depression. That would be clinical depression versus situational depression. So what happens is the brain, that mid part of the brain, the limbic system, starts triggering, you know, the limbic system is kind of like the 5-year-old infant part of us that has those basic drives to survive. I need air, food, water, rest, and, you know, how can I survive? And so when that part of the brain is threatened, and depression definitely threatens that part of the brain, it's one of the greatest pains that a human being can experience is this hopelessness, this internal shame and frustration, and not being able to figure out how to process that in a healthy way. And so what happens is the serotonin receptors, which are the regulators in the brain, they're kind of like the traffic signals that tell which other chemicals are needed and how much. When the serotonin receptors are off, individuals will often start numbing those. Now, alcohol is one of those things. Cannabis, marijuana, alcohol, they all trigger the serotonin receptors to try to help regulate, but the problem is it's non-sustainable. It's a drug. It's a artificial way to tell the brain what it needs to do, and they become very addictive because it's not being prescribed by a medical professional most often. And so this is what happens with alcoholism, and pornography is often used in conjunction because the dopamine will also numb those depressive feelings, even if it's just for a moment. The problem is after an individual, no matter how numb they've become, after they've viewed pornography, there's generally a further state of depression that takes place. So it sounds like it's very much a negative cycle with your husband. The solution being he really needs treatment. He needs to get into a doctor and probably get an assessment done so that he can get on some temporary. I'm not a guy who says, hey, we should take medications our whole lives. I'm a guy who says when you need to take a medication to get on top of that issue right now at hand, that's something you should do, while getting therapeutic help to work through the issues and learn how to manage and balance those depressive feelings rather than numbing them with alcohol or drugs or pornography. Boundaries are always important. Whether it's a wife with a husband who's just refusing to get help for their pornography addiction, I mean, as good of a woman as there is out there who can work through it and help, we all have our limits of what we can take. And so setting boundaries is very important, yet as hard as this is sometime, and I don't blame individuals who can't find the compassion after it's been for so long, so I'm not here trying to get on a pedestal and preach compassion when it might not even be capable at that point. However, when helping an individual get on top of an addiction, when boundaries are set with deep compassion, that's where we see the most change take place. For example, saying, listen, I love you, I want to stay with you, but it's got to be on these conditions. I don't want it to end this way. I want us to get help. So A, you've got to get counseling for your addiction. B, you've got to go in and see a doctor for the depression. And C, we got to probably do some marital work and possibly family work with a therapist so that we can work through this and make the changes that we need to live happily together. Or at least, I don't know what the definition of happy is, because we all go through so many issues in our life, yet to find happiness amongst all the chaos. So boundaries are very important in a situation like that.